Hi everyone, I am Shawn Cassista, and I would like to share some things that I've been going through. First, a little bit about myself. From about 2005 to 2010, I had been politically active, just getting out in the streets and getting to know people, gathering information, getting some experience. Basically, I'm really concerned about what's going on in Canada and the United States. I believe that our freedoms are being seriously encroached upon. And after the 5 years, I came to the conclusion that there was something that was needed that really needed to be focused on in regards to cleaning up the mess that we're in. And essentially, from my perspective, from what I've gathered, that the path to a prosperous future for all of us is keeping our liberties intact, and the only way to do that is with a competent and just justice system. And I want to share with you some of the things that I went through in the courtroom. But first, before I get into that, because I decided to go into court and defend one of my unalienable rights. And that unalienable right was the right to use the road. Despite popular belief, the right to use the road is a natural right, and I have plenty of case law to support that. And my arguments are heavily sound in principle. And anyways, I don't want to get too much into that right at the moment. But in terms of protecting our liberties, you know, it isn't and shouldn't be complicated to anybody in regards to understanding it all and being able to walk into a courtroom and laying it all out before a judge. Really, an educated public in regards to this is absolutely vital in protecting and preserving our freedoms, and it's not all that complicated. I've actually taken the time to put up a couple of pages on my website that will give you a good idea of, where I'm coming from in that regard. Anyways, what I want to talk about in this video is it's basically an introduction to my website, nomoretyranny.net. And what I went through when I attempted to bring my valid arguments. Okay, we're talking case law arguments that are heavily sound in principle. And I want to talk to you about what happened before when I brought these arguments into the courtroom. And I'm also going to briefly describe to you what happened in the middle of all this. Now, I had actually 6 trials that I went through. And 6 trials that I went through over a span of about 5 years. And in the middle of all this, I wound up being assaulted by a police officer and charged with assault with resisting arrest, and put through a malicious prosecution by the local police and the Crown attorneys. So I'm going to describe to you a little bit of what happened here, but the details exactly of what happened and more, you'll get a better picture if you read my website. Everything is up on my website as far as what I've done. I mean, transcripts and everything. I'm bringing everything to the table here so that people get a really good, clear picture of what's been going on. So, anyways, first, the liberty that I went into the courtroom to protect, it's in regards to traffic-related incidences or matters, and I went into the courts in defense of an unalienable right, and that unalienable right is the right to use the roads. And despite popular belief, to be able to operate a vehicle on a road is not a privilege. Okay, it is a right. To be more specific, we have inherent common law rights here, such as to own a vehicle and to use that vehicle on the roadways. Now I'm making a claim here, and the big question is there any information pertaining to the law that supports that claim? And yes, there is. There is a lot of information that supports that claim. A lot of it. I mean, the arguments I brought forward, you know, they're actually not very lengthy. They're 5-page arguments. The documents are a lot thicker because the case law that's attached to it, you know, is the supporting documentation that I'm bringing forward. Not to mention the fundamental principles that are built around that argument. So yes, there's quite a bit of information, and that's just Canadian law. There's a lot more that I could have added in regards to the United States law, which is pretty much something that Canada recognizes according to some case law that I came across there a while ago. So I could have built this argument using American case law as well. But anyways, to move on here, I'm just trying to my problem is all these excessive fees that they have coming in, that they're collecting. Okay, this is an unalienable right that we can use, and if I say I'm not going to pay these fees, then they can't do anything about it. I'm exercising an unalienable right. An unalienable right is a right that cannot be sold or transferred without my consent. Okay, you can't be forced into doing something. If I'm exercising my unalienable right to use the road without harming anybody else, and I don't care to pay any more fees because it's just getting out of hand as far as I'm concerned, I can make the defense. I can make a defense, build a defense, and that's exactly what I've had with these arguments that I have, and go into the courtroom and show that, you know, my rights are being violated here. My charter rights are being violated. If I'm forced to pay these fines, and if I don't pay these fines, I'm going to lose my unalienable right. I'm sorry, that doesn't wash. That wasn't what this nation was founded upon. Okay, that's being oppressive. Okay, so anyways, not to get too much into that at the moment, I'm going to make another video in regards to explaining the law, the case law, and the arguments that I brought forward. And I'll be keeping that as short as possible, but I highly recommend that people take the time to listen to this. Again, I just want to briefly discuss what happened to me when I went to these courtrooms, the things that occurred in that courtroom, and also what happened with the criminal charge. Okay, the police and the local police and the Crown tried to convict me. Okay, they trumped up a charge on me and they tried to convict me of this criminal charge, and I went through a malicious prosecution here. A charter right violation, actually a number of charter right violations took place here, and intentionally. Okay, so from my perspective, this is actually a criminal offense. Okay, this is actually criminal what they tried to do to me. And if you hear me out and do the research on my website, all the details are on my website about all this stuff. So let me talk about the 6 trials that I went through with the with Highway Traffic Act related charges. First of all, 2 of them were tossed out, pretty much. Actually, one was one of my motions were granted. Okay, one of my motions to dismiss the case was granted. Interesting about that, but not to get into that. Another one was withdrawn because the officer wasn't in attendance, and actually he was there because I just saw him out in the hallway 5 minutes prior to going into the courtroom. So some pretty interesting things happened there. 3 of them were very long cases, and I can only talk about one right now because I don't have the details for the other 2, but let's just say every one of them was it was a complete joke how the whole proceedings took place. And let me be clear as to what I was actually trying to do here. I'm bringing arguments into the courtroom. Okay, they're valid arguments with plenty of case law to support them. And what I'm trying to do is use the courts for what they're there to be used for. And that is, I'm bringing in an argument where there's a neutral party who is just supposed to sit there and gather all the information and listen to the argument that the Crown's bringing forward. Now, I was actually charged, so how it usually works is the Crown brings their argument against me with the evidence being the officer's testimony and whatever else they have. I'm supposed to answer to it, and then they close and respond to what I had said. But because I'm bringing forward these motions, now I become the aggressor. Okay, so I'm bringing in these motions. Now the Crown has to respond to them, and then I close to the response, or I close in regard to what the Crown prosecutor's saying. Now, this process is supposed to be done very professionally. If this was if the court is being conducted properly, this is how it's supposed to go. And the judge is a neutral party and just weighing, okay, what is being brought forward. In regards to what the Crown would have been bringing forward is in regards to the facts, in regards to how I broke the law according to the Highway Traffic Act. But I was bringing forward the law, so we're going to have a discussion about the law itself. That's my argument. Now, forget about the other stuff. I mean, I didn't even prepare for any of the other stuff. It didn't matter. Okay? I was there making an argument in regards to the law. That's where I was at. Okay? Now, to briefly tell you what happened in the first case, the one that I describe on my website, is that the whole process took a very long time to go through. It was 2.5 years. The reason being for that was that it took over a year for me to get the disclosure documents. They're obligated to provide all the information, everything that they're going to say against you in court. They have to provide that document, and it took over 12 years. And there was, that wasn't all completely my fault. As a matter of fact, from my perspective, none of it was my fault. They're obligated to provide that documentation according to R versus Stinchcom, which all this documentation is up on my website. And they didn't provide it, and there were some other issues. I tried to bring forward a 11B charter application that I didn't get a trial within a reasonable time. Okay, so 2.5 years later, and a number of court dates went by. I tried to bring this charter application before the court, along with one of my other arguments. And what happened was, when we first arrived there, we tried to figure out what was going on. There was actually the transcripts. I needed the transcripts for that 11B, and they weren't available, so I was actually going to ask for another extension. That wasn't my time. That wasn't my fault. I was going to ask for another court date. And what happened was the judge asked, so what's going on? What happened with all these dates? So the Crown prosecutor started explaining what happened here. And the things that he was saying were completely false. He said so many things that were completely false, and he built up this image of me, okay, this picture of me that actually vilified me before this judge. And I was actually trying to interrupt a little bit here, but I was letting him speak and waiting for my turn, because that's the way the process works. He's making claims. Okay, after he's done making these claims, again, the same process. Okay, I get to answer to these claims. And that never happened. As soon as he painted a bad picture of me, this judge just turned into, it just created a hostile environment in the courtroom. Okay, so I didn't get a fair hearing. And we went straight to a trial from there. We avoided my motions and everything. We avoided the 11B, addressing the 11B issue. I mean, it was just completely unfair what happened. It was just a complete travesty. So anyways, I appealed this to the Supreme Court of Ontario in Brampton. Okay, this where I'm in Mississauga, and the appeals are conducted in Brampton. And I went up to the courtroom there, and I had to have one first appearing to give grounds for the appeal. Okay, where are the grounds? I went in there, and there was an actual judge. In the other trial, it was a justice of the peace. This was an actual judge, and what happened was the prosecutor again actually put a label on me here, saying that I was part of some political movement. And as soon as she declared that or stated that to the judge immediately turned hostile, meaning he had a beef with these individuals. Okay, so right there was a bias right there, and his tone changed, and right at that hearing he even told me to shut up at one point. Okay, that was completely unprofessional the way he conducted his duty there. But I stood my ground, and I made a case for grounds for the appeal, and I got the appeal. Now we went on to another date was set to hear this, to hear the whole story. And what happened was I wound up getting the same judge that I got at that first appeal hearing. And like I said, this guy was already biased. They had some kind of beef against these people, and I'm going to talk about that later, about what happened in regards to what this, this political movement and how I was attached to it, and I'm not. Anyways, I was discriminated by the prosecutor at the first appeal hearing. The judge got violent, got nasty with me. When I went to the second appeal hearing, it was just a complete farce, the way things took place in that courtroom. And I simply did not get a fair hearing. So I've got, forget about these other arguments that I'm bringing forward here. Now we got two charter rights applications that I'm trying to bring forward. Okay, and 11B, that I didn't get a trial within a reasonable time, and 11D, I didn't get a fair hearing. Okay, so that's what happened, and I didn't get a fair hearing again at the appeal hearing. So, to make a long story short, I had to file another appeal to the Supreme Court of Ontario. What happened there was also a joke. It was actually the whole hearing was conducted properly, but the end decision was just baffling. And I'm gonna leave you at that. I'm just trying to pique your interest to go in there and look at what I've written, because until you actually read the whole documentation and gather all the information there, point for point, and see the evidence through the transcripts and everything you'll get quite the picture of what happened here, and how it was, like I said, it was a complete travesty as to what took place. So let's talk about what happened with the malicious prosecution. Here are the quick details on that. Now the highway traffic trials took about 5 years. That was from 2010 to 2015. In the middle of all that, November 29th, 2012, in the evening at about 9 p.m., I was at a local pub. This is in Port Credit. This is just west of Toronto, about 15-20 minutes west of Toronto, down by the lake. And the Port Credit River runs right through Port Credit. And there's a bridge on Lakeshore. This is the main road there, is Lakeshore Road. Now on the west side of the bridge is a small pub where I was at, and I met a friend and acquaintance around 9 p.m. We stayed there for a couple of hours, about 2 hours, and I consumed a couple of pints of beer in that 2 hours. And by the time we left, later in the evening, another friend and acquaintance showed up, and we all decided, we're going to head to another establishment. And we decided that's what we're going to do, and we all jumped into my vehicle. And right by the lake there, or right by the river, there's a boat launch right by the bridge, and a police officer, a police cruiser, was sitting there. And I pull out on the Lakeshore Road and immediately head over up onto the bridge. And I actually had to make a stop at the bank there, which was right on the other side of the bridge, so it wasn't very far at all. When I got out of the vehicle, I sped up to the speed limit. I noticed that the officer was making his way towards the road. And anyways, trying to make this short as possible, I made my right-hand turn onto this road where the bank is and parked immediately right in a parking spot that was like 15 feet away from Lakeshore Road. And I get out of my vehicle, and there's this officer standing there with his lights on, and he's yelling at me, ordering me to get into his vehicle to blow into the breathalyzer. And it's like, well, like, hang on a second here, like, there's no need for him to talk to me like this, right? So anyways, I hold on, the first words out of my mouth, and I walk over to him, and we start talking. And he was very aggressive with me, and started accusing me of being drunk and whatnot, okay? And again, ordering me to get into the vehicle. And I just, I refused to get into the vehicle because of the way he was talking to me, and I tried to calm the situation. Anyways, to make a long story short, after a minute or so of this talking, he said that he was placing me under arrest. Tried to reach out and grab me. He took a couple of steps forward, and I took a couple of steps back. And then he stopped, and I stopped. We talked. More words were exchanged, and we moved off to the road to the side, to the sidewalk, and then along the back of his car. And from there, he he started talking a little bit more, and then he opens up the back of his vehicle, the back door of his cruiser, and he grabs my arm, and he starts trying to push me into this vehicle. And I'm just standing there holding, like, staying firm with my hands down, not moving. It's like, well, hang on a sec, buddy, like, get your hands off me, kind of thing, like, let's talk about this, right? And he backed off for a second, and I said, listen, let's get this recorded, okay? I went for my phone, and I tried to pull out my phone to record this conversation. I wanted to start the conversation over. Let's talk about this here, okay? And as soon as I did that, pulled out my phone, he tries to grab my phone, and he says, no, or vice versa. He goes, no, and then tries to grab my phone. Anyways, he tried to grab my phone, and I didn't let him grab the phone. I didn't let him get the phone. And he backed off a bit, and at that time I tossed my phone over to my friends because they basically did not want him to have it. It's a personal computer. And from there, he just before he did this, he whispered something in his radio and called for backup. And it wasn't long, like we're talking like 15-20 seconds or so before there was an officer in the area that showed up really, really quick. And as soon as just before the officer showed up, this officer pepper sprays me and hit me along the top of the head and below, or like above the eyes and below the eyes, and stuff started trickling into my eyes and whatever. From there, I got when the other officer showed up, and I got to tell you, I was freaking out. I just I couldn't believe it. I mean, like, not freaking out, jumping all over the place and attacking the guy or anything, but I was seriously pissed off. And, I had some pretty harsh words to say, like, but anyways, that's what transpired there. I got another officer shows up, and I get thrown in the police officer's cruiser. My hands tied behind my back, okay, and I was there in that squad car for like 40 minutes, at least 40 minutes, my hands tied behind my back, my eyes burning. I couldn't do anything about it. I mean, it was just such an uncomfortable position. I couldn't do anything to treat the burning sensation in my eyes. And I tried to get an officer's attention. More officers showed up, and I was tapping on the window and tried to get somebody's attention. One officer opens up the door, and I told him, hey, I need some medical treatment here. My eyes are burning. All he did was just shut the door and let me sit in that vehicle with my burning eyes. So through the 40 minutes, what happened in that time frame, all the witnesses that were there, and by the way, all 4 of them got out of the vehicle right away and just stood there and watched and observed what happened. So there's 4 witnesses, 2 acquaintances, 2 friends who observed all this, and they became crown witnesses as all the officers started taking all their statements. And to cut the story down here some, I wound up going up to the police station after that, and I blew into the breathalyzer tests. They had me at the police station, went into a room. Outside the room was the officer that arrested me sitting at a desk about 20 feet away, and I was instructed by another officer how to, blow into the breathalyzer test and whatnot. And he also informed me that there's a video camera in the room, and it's videotaping and audio recording me. And I said, well, fine, okay, great, then I'll make a statement here. And I just wanted to ask first, like, under what act of law, where's the law that states that I have to blow involuntarily into this machine? And he said, the Highway Traffic Act. And as soon as he said that, I said, okay, well, the Highway Traffic Act does not apply to me, and I'll blow into the breath test, but I'm doing so under protest. That was it. Okay, so I blew into the breathalyzer, and I blew a low reading. Okay, so they couldn't actually charge me with impaired driving, which was what I was charged with at the scene. I was only charged with impaired driving at the scene of the accident. And from there, I was thrown in the jail for a couple hours, 2-3 hours, and then released. So I get thrown in the cell for a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours, and then the officer comes down and tells me that the arresting officer tells me that I'm not being charged with impaired driving, but I'm being charged with assault with resisting arrest. Now, I didn't know what really constituted the assault or the resisting arrest, but anyways, I was really fuming. My eyes were still burning. I tried to flush them out, and they allowed me to flush them out, but it just didn't seem to help. It made things worse. But anyways, still fuming from the whole thing that happened, so I didn't really think much about the charge or anything like that. And from there, a month later, I had to make an appearance in court, and when I was there, I got my disclosure documents. And I didn't make a trial date or didn't make a plea or anything like that. I had to get a lawyer or whatnot. And I went out in the hallway and I looked over these documents. And what I read was, I just could not believe what I was reading. My chin dropped. I mean, like, reading this report, basically what it was a complete fabrication. Nothing short of a complete fabrication. Okay, and here's basically the rundown on what this officer said, and he also testified along these lines. Okay, so he's got a written report, and he's actually testified twice, because I actually went to court and I won. The judge found my my testimony and the two witness testimonies. 2 out of 4 witnesses showed up and they testified, and they found that our testimony was credible and plausible, whereas the officer's testimony was not credible and not plausible. Okay, so just to give you a rundown there, here's what the officer testified. Okay, like I said, I'm suing, so he went through another stage where they actually testified twice. Okay, but here's the rundown on what this officer said. I pulled out of that pub and I exceeded my vehicle to speed limits of about 80 to 100 kilometers. Okay, I made that right-hand turn. Okay, this is like 200 and probably less than 200 meters away. Okay, from that bar to that street where I parked the vehicle. Okay, so I exceeded to 80 to 100 kilometers an hour and made a right-hand turn with my tires screeching, came to a really quick stop into the parking spot, slamming on my brakes. I got out of my vehicle, I ran 10 to 15 feet. He pursued me, he stopped me, and he said that I said a whole bunch of things along the lines that, okay, the Highway Traffic Act does not apply to me, I'm immune, I'm above the law, I'm above the courts, all this complete nonsense and stuff that I wouldn't even say, especially the above the law and above the courts. There's no way I would say anything like that. I mean, just within 3 months, I believe about maybe 2-3 months after this, I filed my first court documents, okay, in regards to this. And those court documents took a long time to put together. It was a lot of research. So I filed these documents. What I'm doing here is I'm actually using the courts to defend my freedoms, okay? So I wouldn't say anything like I'm above the law or I'm above the courts. Okay, I'm using the courts and I'm using the law to defend my unalienable rights. So this officer is making this claim that I said all this. Okay, so from there, he's saying I said all this stuff, and then that I was trying to beckon him into a fight. So I got my hands up in the air like this, okay, like I'm trying to take him on, I'm trying to get him into a fight, and then I pushed him 2 times with my open hands. Okay, this is what constituted the assault and resisting arrest. And this is just crazy stuff. There's no way I would do any of this stuff. Okay, so anyways, this is what the officer's been testifying, and this is what has been going on in regards to that case. Just a complete malicious prosecution here. So let's talk about what happened when we went through to the courthouse to deal with this this trial and this charge. It was about just less than a year from the event, and all the 4 witnesses were there. Now they were there as Crown witnesses. What transpired was, from what the witnesses told me, that they're all called into the courtroom, or into a small room, by the prosecutor, and the prosecutor asked them blatantly, like, does anybody care to change their story? And they all basically, or change their statement. And it's like, no, nobody wanted to change their statement. And anyways, soon after that, they were released as Crown witnesses. And this is where I want to say, this is what is a complete joke here in regards to how this whole trial and this whole legal process took place in regards to this criminal charge. Now, I've been accused of wasting the court's time, okay, in regards to me standing up and defending one of my unalienable rights. Okay, I've got, like I said, case law, Crown law, case law, and principle arguments that are heavily sound in principle and I'm trying to bring these arguments into the court, and I'm being accused of wasting the court's time. 4 witnesses were brought in that day, okay? They all had to take time off work, okay? We wasted a complete whole day was set for this trial. We were all there for the entire day, okay? I had to go back for final submissions, so there was another half a day wasted with my lawyer and myself, and then we had to go back once again to hear the judgment. Okay, so that was a lot of time wasted here. Okay, a lot of court resources and whatnot. So here's what I think should have transpired in regards to this legal process, in regards to this criminal charge. The officer is making some pretty bold claims here. And if there was 4 witnesses, Crown witnesses, you would have thought that, okay, the right thing to do here is just for somebody, even just to pick up the phone and try and contact these witnesses and ask them clearly, like, exactly what happened, or at least clarify some of the things that this officer said. Like, you know, like, was Shawn driving like a maniac? Did he try and flee the scene? Did he say all these things about being above the law and above the court? Did he start trying to beckon the officer into a fight? Did he push the officer? It was like 5 straight questions that needed to be asked by the prosecution to these witnesses that they could have been easily done by a phone call. Okay, and then the charges would have been dropped. But when I actually, let me say that when I went to see my lawyer about this and told him what happened, I asked him at one point, okay, so what's going to happen here? Like, you know, what, are you going to go in there and you're going to try and work out a deal or something to get these charges dropped, or what the deal was? He basically said to me, no, Shawn, because of the things that you're doing, they're going to come after you. Okay, but there's going to be a trial. I was like, what? Okay, so like I was kind of taken from that when he said that. I was like, they're not going to listen to me. He said he'd try. He tried on one appearance when he went into the court, and then right before the trial, he said, "Listen, you know, you put that officer up on the stand, and I'm gonna rip him to pieces." And didn't listen to anything the guy was saying. We went through with the trial, and the way they, like I said, the way they handled these the witnesses was just ridiculous. Like even when they were in the courtroom, what should have happened, or at the courthouse, what should have happened was the prosecutor should have individually, if not calling them up on the phone and clarifying all this, they should have individually been called in to the prosecutor and asked a number of questions, and like, are you willing to, you know, this is what you're saying happened and you're willing to testify. Okay, so Shawn didn't push this officer. He didn't try and get into a fight with him. He wasn't driving like a maniac. And you're willing to testify that. I mean, these are questions that should have been asked at some point before the trial by the prosecution to avoid this entire situation. And it never took place. We're talking 4 witnesses here. There's plenty of evidence by testimony. I'm not going to go and ask these people to make a lie. I mean, 2 people I don't even know. But there's no way I'm going to get people to go up there on the stand and lie for me. And there was no reason for it. There was no reason for this entire thing to take place. There's no reason for the officer's behavior to begin with. So anyways, this is what transpired, and now I'm suing. So that we had a malicious prosecution, and it looks like because of I'm standing up for my rights. Okay, I'm making a case for my rights. I'm bucking the system. Okay, a system that I believe is oppressive. Okay, and in regards to these people that are being, you know, like I said, I'm being labeled a part of a political movement. Now let me talk about this for a minute. These people are what is known as the free man on the land movement. The CBC did a story on it. As far as I'm concerned, that was just a propaganda hit piece on these people. Okay, they're also regarded as organized pseudo-commercial argument litigants. Okay, that's the legal term that has now been attached to them. Okay, and this is the label that is being put upon me. And okay, there may be some similarities as far as what has gone, you know, just from my research, I've looked at what they're doing, and a lot of the things that they're saying and doing are absolutely 100% correct in regards to the common law. Now, the CBC has reported that there's like something like 30,000 people in Canada alone, but they're all over, all over North America and in Europe. It's a large movement. The way I see it, these people are just people that are getting sick and tired of being oppressed. We have government that is passing laws left, right, and center that are oppressing us. The more laws you bring in, the more oppressed we become. And this has been going on for decades, okay? Since World War II, it's just been getting out of hand. And people are standing up, and all the best to them, absolutely, for sure. I don't have anything bad to say about these people, although some of the things that some of them are doing are giving the movement a bad name, for one. But I'm not part of this movement. As far as I know, none of them are bringing in charter arguments. This is what I'm doing, and that's what I'm doing. I've done all the research. My Section 7, my right to liberties, my liberties are being infringed upon. That's what I'm doing here. I'm bringing in charter arguments to protect my Section 7 charter rights. Okay, so that's where I'm at. Okay, so I have some real concerns here. I have concerns about what is happening. And I want to talk to you about, to really even magnify the situation here, I want to talk to you about a clip that aired on CBC, a news clip, late last year. And it's something that should be discussed every day and isn't. And the clip is, and you can find this on my website, the YouTube link, or on my long introduction page. It's actually attached to an Abraham Lincoln quote, which was actually very prophetic. It's about the clip is titled how 10% of Canadians control 50% of the assets of Canada, and how the middle class has really next to nothing. They're pretty much in debt. And actually the people that were reporting this were actually using words like shocking, okay, disturbing, okay, and this is something that needs to be discussed. How did we get to this point? Why? How? Where? Like, what's going on here? This is something that needs some serious discussion, and it's not being discussed. I haven't heard anything about this since that report, and that just goes to tell you that, the CBC is, from my perspective, just a propaganda machine for the Canadian corrupt corporate government. Okay, and why would they talk about it? The people that run the CBC, or the people on top of the CBC, are probably part of the 10%ers. They're not going to disclose the information in regards to how we came to this. They like being where they're at. What does that say for the rest of us? Okay, in regards to the justice system, these people, the 10%, can bury us in the justice system, using the justice system, because they got the money to pay for high-priced lawyers. The rest of us, we don't. Okay, it cost me tens of thousands of dollars for my lawsuit. Okay, it's cost me $20,000 for my fines, standing up for my freedoms. Like, who can afford this? If I was rich, I'd be able to do it. I'd keep going. If I had $1 million, I'd be fighting left, right, and center, because I believe in what I'm doing. These people will fight to bury us because they got, they just believe in being where they think they should be. Anyways, I don't want to get into that war of words. If I don't get the financial support that I'm getting, then I'm more than likely going to have to try and work out some kind of settlement in regards to my lawsuit. And what good will that do the community if I have to go that route? Because I'm saying that because there's going to be a condition attached to that, and that condition is not to say anything to anybody about what happened here. Okay, and that to me that doesn't cut it, and I'm risking this whole settlement thing anyways by putting this video out. So, and I might even lose my lawsuit, so I might even be stuck with legal bills, the police officer's legal bills, from what my lawyer is describing. Like, this is, this is a cause for concern, and this is just completely ridiculous, you know, of what's going on here. There's just no way that this should be happening. A public servant should be paying the price more so than other people. Like, you know, you go up there and lie on the stand about something, that's one thing that you should be punished for. But if our public servants are going up there on the stand, that should be much more severe, because we put and trust them to do the right thing here, and they're not. Anyways, I hope that you see that there's value being added here, and I hope that you can provide some funding, you know, help spread the word, you know, educate people, educate yourself on this. Take the time before you do anything to go on my website and gather the information. See that there's real value here. The education on the roots of our freedoms, the foundation for all our freedoms. It's all there, and it's not rocket science. It's something that we can all learn, and we should learn it. We must learn it. Okay, so freedom isn't free. You know, we have to stand on guard for thee and fight for it when it comes to that time. And you know, I don't expect everybody to go and take time off work and do the things that I'm doing. It was pretty time consuming, but at least support the people that are doing it on your behalf. I mean, like, you know, I don't know what else to say there. So anyways, there is a donation page on my site with a link at the bottom of it for those of you who can help support this project. And thanks for listening in, and please help out and spread the word.